In just a few hours, Donald Trump's hush money trial will resume here in New York City. However, before testimony begins, the judge will hold another hearing about the former president's most recent gag order violations. Trump had the day off from court yesterday, and he spent most of the time campaigning in Wisconsin and Michigan, where he slammed the judge for fining him $9,000 for violating the order.
The judge, by the way, is the most conflicted person in the history. I don't think there's ever been a more conflicted judge. Crooked and conflicted. And I'm unconstitutionally gagged.
All right, the gag order bars Trump from speaking publicly about the witnesses, court staff, and their families. Joining me now in Studio 57 with more on this is CBS News investigative reporter Graham Cate. So he can say whatever he wants about the judge, and he does that quite frequently, Graham. But let's start off with this gag order. The judge has already fined him $9,000 for violating the gag order. What else did he say about this? What else can he do to him? Like, are we looking at more fines? Because it doesn't seem to be making much of a difference.
Yeah, so there's two things to think about with regards to today's hearing. These were an additional 4 allegations of violating the gag order that were brought up before Trump was held in contempt on Tuesday. So it's not as if the prosecutors have said he has since violated the gag order after being held in contempt. So that's important because when he was held in contempt, the judge said, you know, if you do this again, you do risk incarceration. That's what happens to a criminal defendant when they continuously violate a gag order after they've been held in contempt. These are being considered for the fact that they were made before the contempt finding.
Okay.
So don't expect incarceration to be on the table today.
Okay, that's good to know. So let's head back to the actual trial, right? The jury heard testimony from bank executive Gary Farrow and lawyer Keith Davidson. Can you recap what the court heard?
Sure. There are two important things. From the banker, we got to see the documents, the emails, and the bank records that showed a $130,000 payment from Michael Cohen, who was Trump's former lawyer and now a key witness against him, to Keith Davidson, who was Stormy Daniels' former lawyer. And these were, prosecutors say, to suppress a story that Stormy Daniels had about a sexual encounter with Trump days before the 2016 election. And then from Keith Davidson, that lawyer, we heard more about the negotiations surrounding that. And there was something that's really important here. They were, with both of these people, they were asked a lot of questions about their interactions with Cohen. And they both kind of sounded the same theme, which was that he was unpleasant to talk to. One of them used the word jerk. They showed text messages with someone else saying the same thing, actually 2 other people. And there's some idea Cohen's going to be a main witness against Trump. And here we are, the prosecutors are letting the jury know you should have some expectation about what to expect when you meet him,
right?
So that they're not surprised if that's their interpretation when they see him.
That is so interesting. Yeah, he may not be likable. Yeah, he may be an admitted liar, but that doesn't mean he's not a valuable witness in this case.
Yeah, don't let that obscure the documents we're going to show you. That's what the prosecutors want them to know.
Oh, that's so fascinating. Graham, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Possible school shooting thwarted in Wisconsin. Police taking down a 14-year-old boy with what appeared to be a rifle before he was able to get inside the middle school. Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas is in Washington with the details. Good morning, Pierre. The kid was just 14.
Janae, good morning. This story is tragic on so many levels. Police suggesting they had no choice but to kill one of their own children. The suspect was a student from the area. This morning, the small town of Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, feeling traumatized as parents reflect on a day of frayed nerves and utter fear.
Somebody said run, they ran. I just wanted to hold them tight and not let them go.
Charity McCarthy had an 8th grader at the middle school where reports of an active shooter unfolded late Wednesday morning.
Reports of shots fired at the school.
Sources telling ABC News police encountered a 14-year-old boy with what appeared to be a rifle outside of the school.
While it was happening, we just sat in the corner.
The boy was killed in the confrontation, the incident forcing the school to lockdown. Police and panicked parents raced to get there.
Sounds like there is one injury. It's going to be the suspect.
The late evening press conference, officials confirming the suspect, the boy killed, was a local student.
This type of incident is any parent's nightmare.
Images all too familiar. Nervous parents waiting, SWAT teams, emergency vehicles.
I just got him. Yes, I've been waiting for the last 5.5 hours.
I'm a student here. I'm an English major. Please, don't fail us. Don't fail us.
It looks like these explosive fire sticks, I think, that are designed just to strike fear. It doesn't seem like they're hitting anybody, but they're extraordinarily loud and extraordinarily bright, and they were using that to basically push all of the supporters for the encampment to a different part of campus.
In a place like UCLA, where they tell you this is a place to have a free exchange of ideas and to, learn about the world, yet when you stand up for Gaza, this is what happens.
We're going to turn to the Middle East now. Hamas says it is sending a delegation to Egypt, quote, as soon as possible to keep working towards this long anticipated, long delayed ceasefire deal with Israel, which is still not really in sight. Hamas's leader says he's concentrating on the positive spirit of the moment as the fate of hostages and more than 1 million civilians in southern Gaza hangs in the balance. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is urging Hamas to accept the deal, saying there is no time for further haggling. Let's bring in ABC News foreign correspondent Tom Soufi-Burge in Tel Aviv for more on these crucial talks. Tom, we've been here before. What do we know about Hamas's willingness to talk? Is it closer? It feels a little closer, or is that just false hope?
It's a very good question, Terry. I mean, look, I think there is an element of false hope. Over the last 48 hours, sometimes we've had our hopes up because there's been some positive signs and some positive language. And then there's been some negative language, and our hopes have kind of dropped again. I mean, look, take the commentary from Hamas, for example. Late last night, a senior Hamas official was saying that the position of Hamas to this proposed deal is negative. Wind on the clock, and as you say, the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, is basically saying there's an air of positivity that Hamas is considering this deal. Look, we know that there is a proposal on the table. We know that the American administration is saying it is a generous deal, that the Israelis have made a lot of concessions on the number of hostages potentially released in the initial phase of the deal, the number of Palestinian prisoners that could be released in return. What really seems to be the stumbling block right now is whether or not this deal lays out a kind of roadmap or a path towards a potential or definitive end to the war. Now, look, Hamas does want the war to end. I think for Hamas, it's almost a red line. They need to know that at some point the war will end. At the same time, once again, we've had Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying, we will go into Rafah, we will finish the job, and we will try and go against those remaining battalions which the Israeli government says are hiding in that southern city of Gaza. But, of course, there are hundreds of thousands of civilians there too, and that is why the US is telling the Israelis, don't go into Rafah.
Yeah, they basically leveled the rest of Gaza, basically all of Gaza, and they still haven't rooted out all of the brigades, they say. But I wonder, the U.S. has warned that peace in the entire region is on a knife's edge. We don't, nobody wants a wider war, obviously. Would a ground invasion of southern Gaza, of Rafah, where all those refugees are, what would that look like, and does it risk that wider war?
It definitely ups the chances. I mean, I think there's no one would say it wouldn't. I mean, look, because, we're not talking about this side of the negotiations much, but there is also talks at the moment between mediators, potentially the French, the Israelis, and Hezbollah in Lebanon to try and de-escalate on Israel's northern border up there. Now, Hezbollah, like other militias backed by Iran in the region, they're launching attacks or have been launching attacks for months, and their premise or their motivation and their reasoning is the war in Gaza. So if you go into Rafah, the Israeli government goes into Rafah, there's no doubt that it will...
2 shots fired, rifle was observed.
Tonight, a middle school student is dead after police responded to reports of an active shooter outside at a Wisconsin school.
The deadly force was used in this incident, and the subject is deceased.
Police responding to 911 calls around 11 a.m. The Mount Horeb School District enacting a full lockdown minutes later. School officials say the suspect was unable to breach the entryway of the school, preventing the gunman access to the students. As news spread, parents frantically trying to reach their children inside the school.
She finally answers, and she's obviously bawling her eyes out. Getting that call and not knowing, are they going to make it? Is this going to be our last phone call?
Police releasing little information, but confirmed there were no reports of injuries or death outside of the suspect.
Subject is down. Officers are okay.
The rifle recovered with the suspect.
The incident unfolding during students' gym class and recess. Rollerblades left behind as kids ran after hearing gunshots.
I've made it a point when I drop the kids off at school to say I love you because there's just a possibility that this would happen.
The school district writing on Facebook, "You would be so proud of our students and staff